What are you thinking about most when it comes to your health right now, today? Don't think too hard about it. Just notice what came to mind first. Like, what is the biggest issue that you're thinking about? Is it your weight? Is it your energy level? Is it your diagnosis? Maybe a symptom that won't seem to go away? Maybe it's the body that feels so different than the one you remember, or maybe it's a surgery coming up. Maybe it's menopause, or maybe it's those lab results you just got. And maybe it's something deeper that you've been carrying for so long, it's become part of your body that you haven't even questioned. Whatever it is, your mind probably grabbed the thing that is the most important thing about your health journey today. Maybe it's something you've been carrying around for so long that it's become part of the background noise of your life. Whatever it is, your mind probably found it pretty quickly. I find that fascinating. Out of everything happening in our lives, our minds have a way of immediately locating the thing that's bothering us the most, the thing that's hurting, the thing you're worried about, the thing that you wish you could fix, like with a snap of the finger. I see this happening all of the time when I work with nurses who are building their own wellness businesses. They come in so excited. They have this beautiful vision. They want more freedom. They want to help people. They want to create something meaningful that serves others and gives them a little more flexibility in their own lives. And when we sit down and start talking about the actual business, the setting up, we make the list. And y'all, it's a long list. Setting up the business, the bank account, the website, the legal documents, the scheduling platform, the insurance, the bookkeeping, the marketing, the social media, the email system, on. And something happens somewhere in the middle of making that list. I can almost see the shift happen. Nothing bad happened. The sky didn't fall. Nobody told them that it was impossible to do it. The dream didn't suddenly disappear from their heart. But the energy changes because now they're no longer looking at the vision. They're starting to look at the 100 different steps to make it happen. And what I noticed over the years is that when we start to stare at 100 steps all at once, we become exhausted before we've even taken that first step. We spend so much energy thinking about the thing that we have very little energy left to actually do the thing. I don't know about you, but I've done that more times than I can count, not just with work, but with life, with relationships, with problems I can't solve. And I've definitely done it with my health. One of the women who came through Body Bright years ago was preparing for a hip replacement. She had spent over a year trying to get answers about this chronic pain and what to do with it. She was living with it daily and advocating for herself, trying to find someone who would actually listen. And by the time she came into our group, surgery was only a few weeks away. And understandably, it had become the center of her world. And how could it not? When you're in pain, pain gets your attention. And I've dealt with chronic pain before, so I can understand it is constant. It doesn't politely sit in the corner and wait until you're available. It demands to be noticed, like screams. Every morning, it reminded her. Every outing, she would remember it. Every plan she made had to account for it. And one day, as we were talking, she said something that stuck with me. She said, "I feel like my whole entire life has become this hip." I remember thinking how honest that was and how many of us have felt some version of that exact same thing. Maybe it's not your hip, but it's something. And I asked you to think about your something when I first started this video. So pull that something for you up. And maybe it's your hormones, maybe it's menopause, maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's inflammation, maybe it's actually chronic pain for you too. And maybe it's just a fear that your health is heading in a wrong direction and you don't know where to go. If I could just get this one thing figured out, everything else would finally be okay. I know that voice. I've listened to it before. If only I could lose the weight. If only I could stop thinking about food. If only I could have more energy. If only I could get a good report. The problem is that when one thing becomes the entire focus of our attention, we start believing it's the entire story. And it almost never is, because you're more than your diagnosis, you're more than your symptom, you're more than your blood work, you're more than your chronic pain, more than the thing that's keeping you up at night. Those things matter. I'm not minimizing them. They're real. They're important. But they aren't all of you. One of the things we're going to do throughout Body Bright is practice what I call the overview effect. It's stepping back, not ignoring reality, not pretending things aren't hard, not putting a positive spin on everything, but just stepping back far enough to see more. And I didn't come up with the term overview effect. It's a known term, but I hadn't heard of it until I was in the throes of making Body Bright. Because when you're hurting, we naturally zoom way in. We zoom into the symptom, we zoom into the diagnosis, the thing we wish we could change. And sometimes the most healing thing we can do isn't solving the problem immediately, it's widening the lens. It's remembering that this one thing exists inside a much bigger story, your life. And your story is always bigger than the struggle you're currently facing. The hip pain for this Body Bright member was real. The surgery was real. The pain was very real, but it wasn't her entire story. And as strange as it sounds, that's what makes me think about astronauts. I know those things can seem very unconnected. A woman preparing for a hip surgery and an astronaut leaving our planet. But the more I learned about something called the overview effect, the more connected they became. The overview effect is a term psychologists use to describe what happens when astronauts see Earth from space for the very first time. Not in a photograph, not in a documentary, but actually see Earth. Many of them come back transformed, profoundly changed. Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell described it as developing an instant global consciousness. I remember reading that phrase and just sitting with it for a minute. Instant global consciousness. What a beautiful way to describe a shift in perspective. And recently I found myself watching interviews with Artemis II astronauts. They went all the way around the moon. And when they returned from the moon, reporters asked them questions, and I noticed something. The astronauts weren't talking about themselves at all. They weren't talking about being famous. They weren't talking about the findings. They weren't talking about the details. They kept talking about Earth. They kept talking about humanity. They kept talking about connection. One astronaut said that looking back at Earth emphasized how alike we all are. Another described humanity as a crew. A crew. I love that image. We together rowing to make this world better. Because from a distance, that's exactly what we are. We're one crew, one planet together. One sacred, fragile little home carrying all of us through this darkness. I couldn't stop thinking about that. And as I listened to them talk about Earth, I found myself wondering what would happen if we looked at our health that way. What if we looked at our bodies that way? Not as projects, not as problems to solve, not as something we're constantly criticizing or trying to fix, but as home. This sacred, fragile, miraculous little home carrying us through our lives. And yes, fragile. Bodies break, bodies get sick, bodies age, bodies change, sometimes in ways we never expected. But at the same time, they're incredibly strong, intelligent, adaptive, working for us every single second of every single day without us even thinking about it. Think, your heart has beaten thousands of times just while you've been watching the lesson. Your lungs have continued to breathe, your cells have been repairing, your body has been working tirelessly on your behalf. And I wonder what might change if we spent a little less time fighting our bodies and a little more time listening to them. What if instead of seeing an enemy, we saw a companion, a home, a faithful companion that has carried us through heartbreak and joy and pregnancies and grief, celebrations and loss and stress and healing, a body that has been carrying us through this life the best way it knows how, not perfectly, but faithfully. And maybe that's part of the overview effect. Maybe when we step back far enough, we stop seeing only what hurts. Maybe we stop seeing just our hip pain and we begin to see everything that has carried us. What if we stepped back far enough to see the whole picture? What if we stepped back and stopped staring only at the thing that's hurting? What if we stepped back and stopped defining ourselves by the headline? What if we remembered there are other pages in the newspaper? Because when astronauts come home, they don't tell us how the earth has changed. They tell us how they have changed, their perspective. And maybe that's what we're after in this lesson. Not a different body, not a different diagnosis, a different perspective. Because sometimes the thing we're staring at isn't the whole story. It's just the thing closest to our face. So today I want to invite you, as you step into this module, to embrace the overview effect. Not for a planet, but for your health. Let's step back far enough to see the whole story and click next.